Hi, I'm Christina O'Flaherty. I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice in Washington, D.C., and I also offer online sessions. And I'm doing a follow-up video to the video that I did last week, in which I talked about your brain. This is your brain here I'm holding up. This is the brain stem. This is the lower part of the brain where strong emotion and the fight, flight, or freeze response, the nervous system's response to threat, that's all down here in what we call the lizard part of the brain, the old part of the brain. And then up here is the front part of the brain. It has higher order functions, things like problem solving, understanding, compassion, empathy. And we need integration between these two parts in order to function and in order to be a thriving person in this world. And I talked about something that you can do when you get down here, when you have a response to something that's happening to you and it feels very strong and we kind of go offline. We lose access to this part of our brain at times. And the technique I talked about last week was name it to tame it, which gives you this nice little buffer. It puts you back online up here. You've named the feeling that you're experiencing in your body, and that gives you just a little bit of distance, and it allows you to respond to the situation in a way that's useful. Okay, so that's part one. Let's say that you handled the situation, you were able to get back online up here, and you clarified what your role was in this project. But you can feel yourself. It's a week later, it's 2 weeks later, and you are still simmering every time that you see this coworker, right? And it feels bad. It feels really bad and unpleasant to you. So feelings, I should say, are really an important thing that we all have. They're nature's way of, we protect ourselves with anger, for example. Anger occurs when someone is overstepping a boundary, or they are doing something that we feel is unfair, and so we respond emotionally and physiologically in order to let it be known that we're not going to stand for that. Sadness. When we cry, we elicit care responses from other people. We get support for ourselves in our moment of pain. So feelings are really important. And another little fact about your brain, feelings in and of themselves, feeling states, last for 90 seconds in the absence of thought. And this is a really important part of that, in the absence of thought. So what you become aware of when you're experiencing this emotional response about your coworker is that it's linked to a thought. It's linked to a thought about that person was trying to take credit for something that I did. I never get credit for my work. I am always overlooked at work. And what you might even notice is that maybe these thoughts stem from old experiences. For example, maybe you had a sibling who was always getting, you felt was always getting credit for things that you did, or you were always being overlooked in your family. And so there's already sort of this belief about yourself that gets kicked up, and it creates this longer, more drawn out emotional response. So even after you've responded appropriately, you're still experiencing something that feels pretty unpleasant. There's a second part of this technique that you can do, and that is drop it. Drop the story. When you feel upset, when you feel that anger kicking up, say for example at the coworker, go back and remember what it was you were just thinking about. What were you telling yourself about the situation, about you, about them? And drop it. And notice what happens to the feeling. Don't take my word for it. Try this. Notice what happens when, instead of going into the storyline that you've gone over a million times in your head, you drop it and say, for example, you focus on your breath for a couple of minutes. Why watch the emotional response go down, dissipate. So 2 parts to the technique: name it to tame it, and drop the story. I hope you found this useful, and I would really appreciate your comments and feedback, and stay tuned for next time. Bye-bye.